What was the most cringe-inducing date you ever went to during your dating experience? So, he picks me up and takes me to King Taco, a delicious fast food place. But probably not the best place for a first date. He, nicely, offers to pay. And asks what sauce I want on my taco. Red or green? I tell him red. Instead of accepting my choice. He decides he needs to know why I want red sauce. So I tell him, I prefer red. Then he asks why again. This conversation continues for almost a minute before he goes, I know why you prefer red. Apostrophe. By this point I'm annoyed. But curious. Okay, why? Apostrophe. Because you're a girl. And you get your period. And your period is red. I was horrified. How did he even come to that conclusion? Why are we talking about periods? I just want my carne asada tacos. I made him take me home after. And didn't return his calls. We were 19/20 at the time. Oh. The time this guy from my apartment complex politely invited me to watch Titanic in his apartment with him. About 1/3 of the way into the movie. He went to the bathroom and was gone a pretty long time. I finally got up just to see where he went. And lo and behold. There he is. Sitting on the corner of his bed. Door open. Jerking off swiftly and furiously. Really beating it. And just implores. You did this to me. Don't do anything. Date to TGI Fridays with my first boyfriend. He spent the whole hour and a half we were there trying to teach me how to play chess and then getting seriously annoyed with me when I wanted to eat or just talk about anything other than chess. What made it worse was the fact that the woman over at the table next to ours muttered at least we're not on an awkward first date like they are to the guy she was with. The kicker is that we'd been together for 2 years at that point. Spoilers. It didn't last. I was telling a story that just happened to have a black person in it when she interrupted me and said, I f***ing hate S. Met someone online. Chatted back and forth for a week or so. Decided spur of the moment to go see a movie together. I picked her up and tried to make conversation during the drive. But everything was one word answers or non-committal grunts. I simply couldn't pry any hint of a personality from this woman. She fell asleep during the movie. People several rows away were looking because they could hear her snoring. This was during the climax of some summer blockbuster or other. By the way, dropped her off after the movie and that was that. At least she got a decent nap. I guess. Went on a date to Six Flags. And after the third ride I projectile vomited my breakfast all over his back and arm. We were several minutes away from the nearest bathroom. He wouldn't let me buy him a new shirt so he smelled like puke all day. I've been married almost a year now. It's tough to not be able to get a response out of me. But one time a girl told me she had a cavernous vagina and pendulous breasts. I sat there for a good 5 minutes nursing my beard trying to think of what to say next. When he kissed me goodnight on our second date he said he loved me. I was freaked the FCK out and told him he barely knew me. The next day I told him that I didn't think we were going to work and he proceeded to text me poems and telling me that he was extremely jealous of who I end up with. Thinking about it makes me cringe. Near the end of dinner she went on a horrific racist rant. No shades of grey here. This was horrifying. Hardcore racism like I've never heard come out of a human's mouth. Absolutely sickening. Check. Please. I drove her home in silence. She got out of the car. Didn't say goodbye. And I didn't either. This one didn't happen to me but it happened to a friend. She met him from OKC and he tried to make her laugh with an Alan Partridge impression. Having managed to make her politely giggle once. He continued in the Alan Partridge impression for the rest of the date. Whenever she tried to change the subject, he would answer as Alan Partridge. When he made his order, he did it as Alan Partridge. When he finally said he needed to go to the toilet, he did it as Alan Partridge. My friend miserably waited for him to come back. When he arrived back at the table he seemed surprised. You're still here. He said. Yes. Said she. People usually leave when I go to the toilet. I went on a date with this guy where we went to an art festival downtown. At the end of the date he was contacting friends to go out clubbing. He was making it very obvious that this is a yeah you're not invited. I mean it's cool if you want to go out after. I don't care. But it's a little rude to be like yeah we're gonna go out after and have a FCKN blast. But you? Yeah. You go home. Okay. Okay. So it wasn't really a date. But it still applies cause her parents thought it was. I have a childhood friend who is from a family of Jehovah's Witnesses. And she herself is one. For years. We didn't really talk. But I bump into her at some point and we decide to get some supper the next day to catch up. So. There we are. Enjoying a nice meal. When not only does her parents show up. But her grandmother and her great-grandmother. They make a crazy scene in the restaurant. Made her cry for dating somebody outside the religion. And spouted some awful stuff about what type of person I am. They lived on my parents' street. And heard some gossip about my teenage days. Suffice to say. It was a fun night. 7/10 would repeat. At a movie with my first girlfriend. On the way out. We were discussing the movie. When all of a sudden she says. What side of the Civil War would you be on? Nervously. I responded with. The Union? Full stop. She said, out loud with people around, I would have joined the Confederates because slaves weren't that bad. I dumped her 2 days later. Dude, it took you 2 days? Post Tinder date. Not during. I texted him the next day thanking him for a fun night. And apologized if I was a sloppy drunk because I hadn't actually drank any alcohol for 2 months prior. He replied that I wasn't sloppy at all. But he wished I was so he could hold you down and take advantage of you. What the FCK? You rapist. I went on a date with a girl whose name I can't for the life of me remember. Since I only remember her as Egg. If you've seen Arrested Development you'll get the reference. Anyways. We went to a crappy little pizzeria, her request. And then just kind of sat there. I'd ask a question. She'd either nod or reply monosyllabically. She alternated between staring at her pizza and staring at my face. I think she maybe took 3 bites of the pizza. Then threw the rest out. It was painfully awkward. I walked her back to her dorm and that was the end of the night. At like 8 PM. Anyways. We hooked up at the club on a later night. Because college. During high school. I went on one date with this guy. 1. He took me to a cemetery because I was a goth and he thought it would get me in the mood. I was weirded out. But tried to stick it out. It was one of my first times going out. We sat on the hood of his car and listened to music. Then he tried to kiss me and touch me. I told him to FCK off. This was the first date. He backed off. Then tried it again a few minutes later. I yelled at him again and got off the car. He yelled back. Saying he only took me out to have sex with me. I was astonished and so angry. He got in the car and drove off. Leaving me alone. In a cemetery. And it was getting dark. I had to walk all the way back into town and use a payphone to call a friend to come get me. I didn't date again for years. Ah yes. Because nothing turns a girl on more than having sex in the middle of a field of dead people. What a dope. Blind date. Found out afterwards they'd been shown a picture of somebody other than me. I never got to see a picture of them beforehand. But they chewed with their mouth wide open. Italian restaurant. It was bad. Went on a second date with a guy after he slept through our first attempts at a second date, lessons learned, and afterward went back to his place to watch a movie. He gave me a tour of his apartment by telling me which pieces of his furniture were from the dumpster, spoilers, all of them, and then asked if I wanted to make out on his bed. Which was under about 6 inches of dirty laundry. I left quickly. I don't know if this actually counts as a date but here goes. I met a girl on OkCupid. We'd been talking for a bit and decided to meet. We choose a place and a way to recognize each other. She's wearing yellow shoes. Me, I have yellow flowers. So I'm there in front of the place nervous. When I see her get out of her car. She's cuter than her pics. So I'm a tad excited. I feel it good to note that I was 10-15 pounds lower than my pics. She starts walking towards me. It's obviously her. We make eye contact from about 10 feet away. She just keeps walking. No stopping. No smile. Just walks past me like I wasn't there. Stunned, I get in my car. Delete her from my phone and deleted my OkCupid account when I got home. Maybe fourth date in. While cooling down after sex. Guy decided to recite a poem that he said reminded him of me. How sweet. Shakespeare perhaps. Or maybe some Rossetti? No. He thought it was a good idea to recite Andrew Dice Clay. I don't remember the exact bit. But it was something about a pimp disciplining his WHRE. As I lay there appalled. He finished the poem and slapped my ass. I cringed so hard I shattered those rose-tinted glasses. Lost every bit of attraction I had toward him. I was 30 minutes late to our first date because I'm dumb and assumed we were meeting at 11:30. There were bottomless mimosas. And because of first date nerves, I had 5 too many. I didn't get downright stupid. But I definitely overshot the runway. My just too drunkenness manifested itself in by correcting his grammar because I wanted to show him how good I am at something. Also, again, I was nervous. And that's what my dizzy brain clung to as a way of alleviating those nerves. Jenny and I slurred every time he'd say, me and Jenny, or whatever name. We still had fun. Went swimming at his friend's house and continued drinking. I got even drunker. More obnoxious. And more embarrassing. Not horribly so. But enough to feel dumb about the next day. I wish I could say there were a happy ending to this story. Full stop. Full stop. So I will because there is. We've been married 2 months now. Thank God I'm cute and his standards aren't that high. Went to a pizza place in college with this guy I had been crushing on. Was so excited. Small talk was great. Everything going well. Topic moved to my job. Was working part-time at a low-income daycare. He leaned in to ask me a serious question. My heart fluttered. Out came a low, half whisper. So that means you work with a lot of blacks and Mexicans? Pizza to go please. It was a blind date over 2 days. What was I thinking? My first impression was that he looked a little like my grandfather in the 1930s. He was undeniably southern. But without the charm that I've always heard of. He was racist. Sexist. Homophobic and said jiggity way more than I could handle. He tried to physically force me to do multiple things, ranging from carnival rides I had no intention of riding to kissing him too. Well, more. I actually wound up punching him in the stomach multiple times as he laughed and told me to relax. He was an Air Forceman. But he was shorter than me and I have a black belt. So for the most part I held my own. When I finally dropped him off at the base, he still tried to kiss me as I turned my face away from him. It was so effing awful. Well, I haven't shown up in any of these yet. Not the worst, but the most cringe inducing. Everything was fun and fine until the dude whipped out a clipboard and started taking notes on what I was looking for in a significant other. Took a mutual friend on a date as I really liked her. It went really well I thought. I asked for her number, only had contact with her via email. Then she told me that she wasn't really into guys. She confessed to me that she was transgender. I was the first she ever told. And wanted to be a guy. We're still good friends but it was awkward AF for a bit. Went out on a first date with her, met through plenty of fish. And she went on and on about how her father abused her and her mom when she was a kid. All I could think of to say after everything was that sucks. I was once set up with a blind date. With a girl who was already living with another guy. Because her more money than God mom thought I was her dream son-in-law. Me. Good family. Science degree from a major university. Own my own business. Girl's boyfriend. Don't know who his real father is but could be one of 4 or 5 guys. Dropped out of community college unemployed. She only came because mom was going to buy her a new car if she came. The guy gave me a full-blown handwritten letter saying nice things about me. I didn't think anything of it, it was exam season. Okay, until he asked me on a date a month later. He suggested going on a day trip to a nearby town. And in his message included a blow-by-blow account of what we might do. Go for a walk here. Have lunch here. Play giant chess here. Sit at a bench here. Go to this cafe and buy water if it's raining. I felt deeply uncomfortable about this. And we settled for the compromise of an afternoon walk in town. The date itself was all well and good. Except for him wearing the worst clothes I think he owns, including his floppy white hat with the do-up cord. But the following day, after he dropped around to lend me 7ish books, also slightly odd, he posted on my Facebook wall to say what a great person I was and to thank me for my friendship and the walk. My best friend rang me laughing and told me he'd posted. So I quickly deleted the post and messaged him. But it was hilariously cringe-worthy. Well, we can just stop this thread after my reply. This girl seemed super cool. Decided to hang out a bit. All good for a while. First time she ever sneezes in front of me, she puts both of her hands up to her nose. With the smallest HU ever. Not like a normal sneeze, her wrists were limp and hung over forward and she rubbed her nose with her wrist area and her hands were down. I was like, wow, okay, that's f-king weird. Later on we get to f-king and she looks me dead in the eye and calls me senpai and that was it. I finished the sex and broke up with her the next day. I couldn't do it. I'm ethnically Jewish but not religious. She was from Lebanon and spent 90% of the talking about how she hated Jews. And about Palestine. And all that. I still slept with her because she was attractive though.